Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Today's IG Live is going to be a fascinating discussion. We create a lot of content that looks at treating the body as a whole to maintain wellness and prevent illness. Perhaps nothing exemplifies how everything is connected like fascia. Fascia is a connective tissue that surrounds and support muscles, organs, and other structures, providing integrity and facilitating movements. It's a complex system that plays a vital role in our health and physical comfort. That's why we're really excited today to be chatting with Erin Tietz. Erin is a fascia rehab specialist at Fascia Fix in Minnesota. So we're going to discuss many things about fascia, and I think Erin is even going to show us a little exercise. I'm going to... Hello, hi, Erin.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
I'm very happy to be here. I love talking about fascia.
This is going to be a really fascinating one. I was super stoked. Tell us a little bit about your background, like how you became interested in fascia and movement.
For me, it started way back when I was a young child. I was a dancer. Started dancing at about age 3 and danced through high school, studios, college. I would dance for the NFL. And throughout that time, when you're a kid, you just kind of do what you do. You just perform, you dance, you're in athletics, and your body responds and it does good things for you. And sometimes injuries pop up and then you just keep going. So for me, it was an injury in 8th grade. That was the first time I pulled my right hamstring. And that led to continued pulling of the right hamstring over and over again throughout the next 15 years, let's say. And so I didn't recognize it, neither did my dance teachers and instructors, that, there's a reason why it was always my right hamstring that kept being pulled. So through that injury, my undergrad was in health science. I was trying to understand, like, why is this chronic pain starting to build in my body in late teens, early 20s? And that just led me down a quest to figure out, like, what do I need to do to fix this? And so that was really kind of how it got started for me, was my own injury and my own quest to heal and to feel better. And it took me a very long time to get to the point where I figured out a lot of the different elements that came into play with my chronic pain and the progression of what it had in my body.
And do you think like fascia pretty much explained a lot of this?
Fascia and scar tissue and posture and patterns. So there's a whole combination of stuff that when I look back and try to piece it together, starts to paint a different picture in my mind than what I knew when I was a kid. For instance, later post the injury in my early 20s, I worked for Beth Israel Medical Center in New York City for 10 years in outpatient rehab. And I'm not a PT, but I'm an exercise specialist in post-rehab. So I was doing a lot of the exercise programming for people with joint replacements. Back pain was a really big specialty of mine because I was certified in Pilates mat. And through that, I had all these different PTs working on me, and they were doing great things. It would be the best PTs in New York at my fingertips. And everyone's like, oh, can I try today? Can I try today? And I'm like, sure, you can try. And so basically what they're trying to do is, when I pulled my hamstring and then continued to re-pull it, it was basically the hamstring as it was attached to the ischial tuberosity or the butt bone being pulled and stretched away or overstretched. And in that overstretching, my body laid scar tissue down. I didn't know this till later, to protect me from tearing the muscle, which was a great thing for my body to do. Thank you, scar tissue. But then in that progressive laying down the scar tissue, so many patterns changed in my body. And with that, chronic pain started to settle into my right glute. So I had constant chronic pain that never let up. And so when I was going through my rehab, I started working very closely with multiple sclerosis. So that's an area and population I work very closely with still to this day. And when I was trying to deal with my own pain, I didn't honor my pain because I worked with people that seemed to me more challenged in their bodies and in their life, and I didn't honor that for myself. And to make a longer story short, 10 years of PT, I had imaging to show the scar tissue, and my pain management doctor said, Erin, there's nothing more you can do. And he said, you have scar tissue and we can go in and do surgery, but then you have more scar tissue. So I had done everything from iontophoresis to massage therapy, acupuncture, Novocaine injections, cortisone injections, all of it. And I had a little relief from time to time. Nothing stuck because there's scar tissue. So when he said it to me, I gave up, and that was really hard for me. And I walked away thinking, okay, I'm just done trying. I've been trying for 10 years and I'm tired. And a big part of my personality just was shunned at that time as well. It was tough. It was a really tough time. And I moved back to Minnesota. I started working again with MS and the nervous system. And I'm like, I just really need something to zhuzh up and some continuing ed. So I discovered activated stretching. And there was a workshop in New York. So I went back to New York for a weekend. And I had said to the instructors, like, I have chronic pain, I have scar tissue in my ischial tuberosity, so I might modify things, meaning I wasn't really focused on anything for myself. I just wanted more education. And halfway through the first day, my instructor said, well, let me work on you. And I said, okay. In the beginning, they said, oh, this work clears dense fascia and scar tissue. And I was like, okay, good luck. And so I laid down, and my instructor, who is incredible, and she's out there teaching this stuff too, was basically did 10 minutes of work on me. And I laid down, and I had people holding me down because fascia is stronger than muscle. And we did 3 activations. It took 10 minutes. And in that time, this isn't the best description. I've yet to find a better one, but it felt like dried hard duct tape literally being ripped off my bone. But what was happening was that the work she was doing wasn't pushing into any scar tissue. It was shortening the muscle, adding contraction to it, which then encompassed the fascia throughout the muscle, which we can talk more about in a moment too, and elongating it with contraction. So the tension is withheld within the fascia matrix at that point as it related to my scar tissue. And it was reorganizing, changing that scar tissue. And it felt like that one moment where someone could go in and push a button and then just make it all go away was happening. And I knew it because I had tried for so long, and I knew my body. I knew a bit about fascia, but I knew I had scar tissue. So I had enough information to be like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is happening. I started crying. I was 4 months pregnant at the time. So everyone's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yes. And I knew in my heart that, like, this changed my whole life. Not only did I stand up, bend over, touch my toes, and did not have the pain I'd had for 15 years, I knew I wouldn't have it back, and I knew I was going to be doing this forever. And I walked around for an hour at lunchtime and bawled, just emotionally crying, like it just so overwhelming. And so that's really what took all my background and how science and dance and Pilates and brought it to that moment where my whole life changed. And I don't have that pain anymore that I lived with every day. It was a progressive healing after that. The system as a whole had to heal, but that deep, like, heart-wrenching pain that stayed with me was gone.
Wow.
I know.
It's incredible. That is
It's
incredible.
I'm very fortunate that happened for me, because now I'm in a position where I'm able to teach people about it too.
Absolutely. And I think a pain just there are so many people today with chronic pain, and that really drains not just your physical body, mentally, physically, people around you, your life, everything. So Thank you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm an everlasting student. There's endless to learn.
Absolutely. Okay, now let's get into fascia. What is the fascia web?
So fascia is connective tissue, and it's everywhere in our bodies. So it's not just one connective tissue. There's many different types of fascia, different densities of fascia, different jobs that fascia does depending on where it is in the body. One way I like to describe it is kind of thinking visually. So fascia connects everything to everything else, even down to the cell, the nerves, the blood vessels, the tendons, the ligaments, the muscles, the skin, everything. But if you removed everything, your bones, your muscles, your organs, your nerves, blood vessels, you would still have the same shape because fascia is that integrated into our body. So when that happens and you think about fascia as a system in the body, its connectedness is now being discovered in so many different ways, from electrical conductivity to its role and function in the lymphatic system, and so on and so on and so on.
And how does fascia play a role in pain management then, because of its connectivity?
Partly. I think one of the ways I look at it is when it comes to pain management, we all experience pain in our lives, in our bodies. And the fascia is extremely innervated, very highly innervated. It's innervated with pain receptors, for one. So I like to describe to people, like a lot of people have traps that are sore and they're always kind of like getting at their traps. So the pain receptors in the fascia in that particular area of the body will communicate to the nervous system, hey, something's not quite right here. And then the nervous system will tell the brain, we've got a problem, and you will feel it. And that pain is a message, and it's telling you something. And so often we think that we need to fix the problem here, but because fascia is connected throughout the whole body, I like to call myself a fascia investigator. A lot of times the problem's coming from somewhere else. And so when you start to explore and work with your own body or work on someone, there's a lot of discoveries that are made throughout it because the pain is there to teach us something about it. So you can spot treat that particular pain point, like it hurts right here, right now. And that's one way that you're able to help soften the edges of that pain to fix the problems probably not going to happen in that moment. You need to look more globally from that point on. But that's one way that fascia bodywork can really help with pain management. And as a whole, fascia as a system takes longer to renew. There's a lot of different data points out there that suggest different time frames, but 7 months to a year is something that I've heard numerous times. So you can pinpoint a pain point, address it, kind of like if you're going to take an Advil and it goes to your head because you have a headache. So you can do that with the work that I teach, and that will help. And then if you take a step into the journey of fascia, that will take time. Like I said, 7 months to a year. And on the other side of it, if you're dealing with scar tissue, like my story, we were able to pinpoint the scar tissue, and the work was it nailed it, just perfect. And it changed my scar tissue in that very short period of time, and that was a permanent change. So in my mind, in my experience in working with people, I look at it as those three kind of broad ways of dealing with pain. Immediate softening of pain, permanent change if you're working with scar tissue and you do the right thing at the right time in the right place, and then a global change of the system, which takes longer.
Wow, that is amazing. And it feels like this fascia work is so versatile, because I feel like physical therapy to me, when I had a sports injury before, it feels very temporary. But I do see the needs to say, like, if you have back pain, like one thing you always ask to do is strengthening your core, which makes a lot of sense. But that also doesn't feel like it's as versatile as fascia work, like addressing the immediate pain, and also like you can permanently change something, but then also long term you can keep building and keep working with fascia to maintain and to improve.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's so much to consider when you're trying to progress through a chronic pain issue. There's acute pain issues as well. For instance, I talk a lot about patterns that we carry in our body. And one, just before we got on today, I tweaked my ankle 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh, why did that happen? And it happened for various reasons. I started adding an element to my practice where I'm walking on people and using my heels and getting to the body in a different way. So that was a slight difference in something I was doing on an everyday basis. But then I have a little extra stress with different things going on with the family. And so the combination of those set up kind of that perfect storm for my body to say, you know, things aren't working so well. But then as I was sitting here before I got on with you, I realized I talk about patterns on my Instagram all the time, like helping people to catch themselves in patterns, like how you hold your head when you brush your teeth and postures when you sleep. But I cross my legs because I'm very short and I don't touch the floor in the same pattern. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I just change that, that would change how the posture of my ankle is in my seated position. And I'm like, and I could feel it for a second. I'm like, oh, there's another pattern I just discovered. And fascia responds to the demands on the body. And I think that's one of the best things I could teach someone is that if you think of a Olympic swimmer, you know, Michael Phelps, you know, yes, he has developed muscles because of the sport he plays in. The fascia adapts to that demand. Or for another example, a baby. A baby doesn't have a very strong, sturdy Achilles tendon because their body's not asking them for that. So as a baby starts to crawl, stand, walk, that demand is on the body, and there's messages that are sent out, cellular changes that happen, and then the Achilles tendon starts to thicken because there's a demand on it. So if we hold ourselves with our head always to the side, you're sleeping at night, so 8 hours out of the night, you're shortening here, lengthening here, and the fascia is like, okay, that's where she wants to be, and I'll stay there. So when you're trying to come out of this, there's a reaction to that.
I mean, you mentioned posture, so it seems that posture is like so important for fascia work.
I believe so. Yeah. And not so much that you want to try to achieve perfect posture, because it really doesn't exist. So when I'm teaching people about posture, I'm using it as a map of the body. I'm learning about, like, how do they carry themselves? Do they have a rotation of their pelvis or rib cage? And if they do, that gives me information to be able to target the QL or subscaps or whatever it is for that particular person. But what I love about posture is if someone's on this journey to kind of figure out their body and takes a step into it, when you start paying attention to your posture, you'll start to be more aware of the sensations within your body, which is called interoception, which is a term I think will be talked about a lot more in years to come, because we have the idea of the five senses. I know what it feels like that I'm touching right here, right? But to take a step inside your body, the internal sensations that are happening, that interoception, is a wealth of knowledge. And postural adjustments, awareness teaches you something. So if you go from this head position where you're short here, long here, and you're like, this is how I always sit when I'm typing, writing, reading, sleeping, and you go like this, or just change, I can't even barely do it, to the other side, it's going to feel totally wacky. You're going to be like, this does not feel natural. And so that's a very strong asymmetry that's in the body that can be not necessarily corrected, maybe, but it can soften to create more balance. And then the muscles will start to rebalance their strength because you're changing the demands on the body.
So how can we become more aware of our postures throughout the day? Like look yourself in the mirror, or like what's a good tip to actually do that?
So what I've been doing is catching myself in posture. So I'm thinking about it. It's my job. So I'll think about, okay, if I'm sitting here and I'm leaning against a wall, if I'm thinking about improving my posture, you just have to take an active thought to be aware of it. So I feel my right rib cage against the wall right here. What happens if I even it out and put my left rib cage there? For me, I feel like this new freedom and flow of energy through my body. And the more I make that adjustment, every time I catch myself doing it, fascia will respond to that. Years back, I suffered a lot with chronic headaches in the left side. They always started in the left side of my neck, and then it would wrap up to my head, and they would stay with me every day. to a certain level. Some days worse than others. And stretching to me, we can talk more about stretching in the classical way of it, but wasn't working. It didn't make me feel any better and potentially made me feel worse. And so then I started to kind of go into my education, into my own experiences. I'm like, what would I do? How would I address this factually? And so one thing I realized when I started to just tune in to being like, I have to make a change here because I can't live like this all the time. I found out that when I was sleeping at night, I always slept with my head, I was on my back, to the left and my chin down. And this was a pattern that every single time I woke up in the night, I found myself in. So it goes back to those postural patterns. So then I put that together. I'm like, okay, every time I wake up now, I'm always just going to put my head exactly in the opposite position. So I started doing that and it felt really awkward and weird. But jump ahead 6 months, all of a sudden, the right side with my head there started to feel accessible, natural, possible. And so it's like, wow, I feel the difference in my body. And then I started thinking about my neck pain and my headaches, and I'm like, I don't have them as much. That's a piece of the puzzle. There was some also shoulder postural stuff I was working with a wonderful physical therapist on at the time, making discoveries about my shoulder posture and how that related as well to my neck pain. But that was a big one for me. And ever since then, I just kept catching myself in these different moments, how I'm washing the dishes, when I'm on the phone, just all of that. It just started to kind of infiltrate my awareness. And so I just have always kind of continued to focus on that. And I try to put it out there. So when people see like my Instagram posts about it, they'd be like, oh, I wonder how I stand when I brush my teeth. And so that's kind of how it started. But it's taking the step and just being consistent and catching yourself in these different moments.
I think it's like people don't even pay attention. Like I never really think about my movement pattern until today that you mentioned it. Think about your posture pattern. Like people always have this, but if you're even just consciously thinking about it, you can make these small changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But are there
sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, other than like be aware of your posture, are there other things we can do to refresh our fascia? Like does hydration, exercise, and other things make a difference?
Yeah, so hydration is a good topic to talk about. And I'm just going to talk about it in the terms of movement. So fascia needs movement. It needs tension. It needs compression. So movement is fascia's hydration. Years back when I was doing some early education stuff, I don't recall exactly who it was. They were describing, let's say you're talking about your fascia in your forearms. So you have your superficial fascia, you have deep fascia, you have visceral fascia, and they're all connected, layered. Some people like to think of it, makes it easy, but maybe thinking of it as different densities. So the fascia that's underneath your skin, your superficial fascia, then feeds into the deeper fascia. So the ability of your skin to slide and glide like this is good. It's lubricated, it's hydrated. But as we age, or as we have repetitive motions where we start to lose hydration in some areas of our body, the lubrication can kind of get dispersed away from or not remaining throughout that area. When that happens, it gets sticky and stuck, and then the movement is inhibited, and that affects everything into the depths of your forearm. And so when you start to move, that will help with that hydration to get more dispersed throughout the area, so you get back to the sliding and gliding. And the way I primarily teach that is through fascia activations. So I use contraction and movement in a fascia stretch. So in my work, there's no end range stretching at all, where the risk of injury is greatest. And instead, I call it the fascia equation, and it's shortening. Let's use our forearm since we're talking about it. So if I want to rehydrate and focus on the fascia in my forearm, I would shorten the muscle instead of lengthening it to stretch it. I would shorten it, which the muscle needs to do just as much as lengthen. And then fascia needs tension, so you want to add contraction to it. So the muscle will contract. So you need to add that element. So I'll take my other hand to the back and I'll push the hand on the arm that I'm targeting into my hand, this one, the working hand. And then your nervous system has to read this, like how, because fascia is strong, so it can push really hard and I wouldn't be able to move my hand. But I need to ease off just enough that I'm able to maintain a very light contraction, but allow the movement to happen. And then avoiding end range, relax to bring it back up. So there's repetition with it. You can change your angles, like to bring your hand slightly in as you go down. And you're just exploring what you feel and sense in here. And almost immediately after that, you would have better distribution of hydration in that area.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay, you pretty much answered my next question, because I was just going to ask exactly, like, are there any exercise we should or could do throughout the day to show our fascia a little love?
Yes. So I'll do a more specific fascia demonstration that's pretty quick that you can do sitting. So most of the fascia work I do that's daily is because I'm sitting at a desk and I'm doing a fascia activation. I'm shortening, contracting, and moving in the opposite direction. So one that I really like is for the traps, because like I said, everyone kind of was like, oh, kind of feels it there, right? So let's do one of the healing modalities is pain management to spot treat something. So if you're going to do that, you want to shorten the area. So let's say, well, I'm doing my left arm here. So I'm going to cross my left hand over the right shoulder. So here is my target muscle. And then you want to shorten it. So you lift your elbow up. Once you lift up the elbow, it shortens the muscle here. So fascia needs the tension now. So we need to contract it so the fascia can go for the rise. The fascia that's wrapped around every muscle fiber within the trap and surrounding muscles. So take your other hand and bring your fingertips to the top of your elbow. Try to center your body in the best posture you can manage right here, that you're sitting evenly in your sits bones with a little chin tuck. Once your elbow's up, wherever it's able to go, you're going to press your elbow up into your fingertips and hold it for about 2 to 3 seconds. While you're holding it, it gives the nervous system enough time to reach the area that you're targeting. Now you might go really hard, like I don't feel it, so you can go a little bit harder, but when you begin to move, go softer. So allow the opposite hand to start to guide the elbow down towards the chest. And you're always maintaining a light contraction in the traps. You don't need to go all the way, go to where you feel comfortable, and then relax as you bring it up, and you might find you can immediately go higher. And press it up again. So your elbows pressing up into your fingertips, hold it 1, 2, let the opposite hand win. If you think of like a scale from 0 to 10, 0 meaning no contraction in the muscle, 10 the most, you're at about a 1 or 2. So it's more about finding the contraction in the right direction and maintaining it with the movement. So let's do one more. I like to go slow so that you can focus on the interoception. What am I feeling? Maybe you want to bring the elbow wide or across. Maybe you want to free the hand, and you can play with your pathways. So in those pathways, you're exploring, what does my body need? And then just let that arm relax and just notice what you feel.
Wow. It's fascinating. Like you can feel the back here immediately like loosen up.
Yeah,
it's completely different on this side.
Mm-hmm. And we never touched it. So that's what I love about this. And that's what happened with my scar tissue on my hamstring. And that's what's happening essentially here. It's almost like a pump. You get new blood flow into the area, lymphatic flow improves, nervous system conduction is improved, and the muscle then will work better for you. So your muscles become more efficient while doing this. It's all the systems are so intricately combined because your nervous system's trying to figure out what you're trying to do. And there's a lot of different elements to it. So it's hard not to get too complicated too fast, because sometimes just keeping it simple is what the majority of people just need. And anyone can do this anytime, anywhere. I work with people in person. I work on their bodies with my hands. I do fascia activations. I do silicone cupping. I do pinching, muscle swivels, walking, all sorts of crazy stuff. But I truly believe that the fascia activations is what's changing the fascia from the inside out more than any other modality I found.
That is so amazing. How can people work with you? You mentioned that people can, work with you individually. You can work on them, but I know you also have many other programs.
Yeah, there's a lot. I try to put a lot out there. Years back, I developed a course on dailyom.com called the 2-Week Fascia Miracle, and I've condensed that into the Express Fascia Miracle, which is on my website. So it's basically an introduction to the course. I have a quick introduction called the 5-Day Fascia Fix, and it's basically 5 days. Each video is only like 10 minutes, and I target each body part and teach one fascia activation so the individual can feel it in all the different parts of the body. And then I have the Express Fascia Miracle, which is 5 lessons, and they're each a half an hour long, and they target each area of the body as well. So it's kind of like a system renewal. And then I have one for the neck because of my neck pain issues. And that one's a neck relief course, and it's a little bit more curated for upper body. So working with the pecs, traps, the neck. And that one's been really a popular course because a lot of people at some point suffer with neck pain. And those are some of those.
If you're like hovering over your computer like me, I'm doing this all day. I feel like, okay, the neck and shoulder, I totally need it.
Yeah. And then I have a membership, which I'm actually the most excited about because I really want to put this in people's hands. And I luckily have a really great audience globally now. And so I have a membership on Patreon, which a lot of podcasters do as well. And there's different tiers that people can do, and they have free trials now, which is awesome. So starting in September, I'm teaching a weekly half-hour live class, and then it's recorded and it's posted, and it's everything from like TMJ to neck to are you going to go for a hike? This is what you do. And there's 2-minute videos, there's 10-minute, there's 45-minute videos. And it's basically where people can just go and play and then have more direct access to me as well and ask questions. So that's my kind of baby right now. Is I just love that community, and then I'm just constantly putting stuff out there and learning new stuff, trying things, and that's where people can find it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for giving us all these tips and introducing us to fascia. And we're going to have to promote your programs, both the Express Fascia Miracle program and also the Fascia Fix and also the membership. This is amazing.
That'd be great. Yeah, and I'm always open to questions, so people can find me here on Instagram, and then YouTube is another good one. There's a lot of free content if people want to explore there too.
Yeah, we actually had someone asking, what's your IG handle? We actually have Erin's IG handle. It will be in a post promoting this Instagram live, and it's Fascia Fix MN. So make sure you follow Erin.
Yes, thank you so much, and I love what you're doing as well. And I'm just so happy to be here today.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Bye-bye.